Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Technology, a podcast exploring the latest in computers, networking, home automation, mobile computing, and all things technology related. Our hosts will take a deeper dive into the latest and greatest in tech trends and give you the information you need to enable your tech-centric world.
This is Insights into Technology, Episode 11, the Salt Typhoon Saga and CMMC 2.0. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and this is your tech news for the week. Our first story comes to us today from the Register. The Salt Typhoon continues. In a rapidly unfolding cybersecurity saga, China-linked Salt Typhoon has emerged as a formidable cyber espionage force targeting critical telecom infrastructure globally. The group reportedly intercepted calls from high-ranking U.S. political figures and accessed metadata across multiple American telecom providers, sparking national security concerns. During a White House briefing, officials confirmed Salt Typhoon's sophisticated tactics included exploiting vulnerabilities in wiretapping systems and leveraging unprecedented methods to hop between networks, a maneuver described by T-Mobile's chief security officer as unlike anything seen in over a decade. While T-Mobile successfully defended against the attack with advanced security measures, such as layered defenses and FIDO2 authentication, other telecoms, including Verizon and AT&T, faced prolonged breaches. This underscores the urgent need for enhanced encryption and rapid threat response strategies to counteract state-sponsored espionage. With a Senate subcommittee set to address these risks in upcoming hearings, the Salt Typhoon operation serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities in critical U.S. infrastructure and the escalating stakes in global cyber conflict. So probably the biggest takeaway from this really is the rising threat from state-sponsored cyber espionage. And this comes at a time during an administration change that the United States is going to undergo in about a month now, I guess. Yeah, a little over a month. Salt Typhoon's ability to exploit telecom vulnerabilities highlights the increased sophistication of these state-backed cyber attacks. And really, probably the damaging or the damning thing here is that the exploits that they were able to take advantage of were inbuilt vulnerabilities in our infrastructure that are designed to allow law enforcement to conduct wiretaps and criminal investigations and so forth. So the vulnerabilities in the telecom network now need to have a light of day shown on them to present the business risks that they present. The exploitation of wiretapping systems and the inter-network hopping by Salt Typhoon underscores these critical weaknesses in the infrastructure. What that entails in fixing that's not entirely clear at this point in time. What kind of risk does this mean for businesses moving forward with their telecom providers? How do you ensure secure communications? The federal government came out and suggested people start using encrypted communications like Telegram, but this is also contrary to what government officials and law enforcement have been shooting for, where they've really wanted to have backdoors in our encryption systems, which again is a deliberately engineered backdoor so that law enforcement can take advantage of it. But as demonstrated here, there's very little to stop nefarious actors from taking advantage of these holes too. So it calls into question the entire philosophy of putting these backdoors in. Now, there's advanced security measures available to us today that can be taken advantage. T-Mobile implemented a number of these. They're using layered defenses. They're using FIDO2 authentication, rapid credential rotation, and a number of other things that obviously weren't in use by the other telecoms, but that still doesn't solve a back hole that you deliberately put into your product. There's regulatory and legislative efforts now to dictate, mandate, legislate, regulate enterprise security. Senate subcommittee is poised to discuss the telecom vulnerabilities. Regulatory pressure on both telecom providers and enterprise users is probably likely to increase. We're seeing something similar to this, though not initiated by any specific threat. But my company, who works as a subcontractor in the DoD space, our CMMC 2.0, which we'll be talking about later in the show, that officially kicks off December 16th, and that's been something that's been in the works for years now. We started, in my company, we started working towards it back in 2017, 2018. Now they're talking about implementing these types of controls on the telecom industry and on regular enterprises, not just those that are doing business with the government. So there's a lot of moving pieces here with a lot more broader implications than I think a lot of people realize. And the threat that this Salt Typhoon attack has manifested, I think, has really, on the one hand, on the positive side, it's shown a very bright light on the shortcomings and the critical nature of the vulnerabilities that we have. And on the other hand, if we're going to rely on government to regulate this and to legislate this, the track record that we have from the federal government shows us that they take too long. Not only do they take too long, there's a fundamental lack of understanding on the part of politicians who are writing these laws. And if government is going to get involved in cybersecurity, they're going to need to pull in resources that are knowledgeable and understand the problems and can constructively address those problems. And I think you're going to see a rapid increase in the pace in which these things are dealt with moving forward now, because the threats are just too real at this point. They're too close to home at this point. The next story we have today comes to us from Security Week. They tell us that Deloitte responds to data theft claims. Deloitte experiences their latest cybersecurity scare as the BrainCipher ransomware group claims to have stolen over 1 terabyte of data from Deloitte UK, threatening to release it in 5 days if a ransom isn't paid. While Deloitte insists the breach affects only a single client system outside its network, the incident raises concerns about the growing sophistication of ransomware operations. BrainCipher, linked to earlier attacks on critical infrastructure in Indonesia and other industries, continues its campaign to file encryption and data theft with ties to other notorious groups. This marks Deloitte's second major security challenge in recent months, following hacking claims by Intel Broker in September. As the stakes grow higher for organizations under siege, we'll continue to unpack the evolving ransomware landscape and what it means for global security preparedness. Now, in this case here, again, this is demonstrating a growing sophistication in these attacks. Now, a lot of people will tell you that this growing sophistication is the result of, well, it's the result of a lot of things. It's a result of nation states sponsoring these types of attacks. It's a result of the profitability of these attacks and how much money people are making off of them, which in and of itself is a motivational principle, but it's also a funding principle where they can throw more resources when they start making money off of these. I think a large part of this has to do with the employment of artificial intelligence lately, which is increasing the level of sophistication and making it more difficult for organizations to, one, detect these, two, determine the danger and the threat, and three, to social engineer the employees at these organizations. Now, this particular attack does signify the critical role of supply chain security here. Deloitte's statement that the breach stemmed from a single client system highlights the vulnerability of interconnected supply chains. We have a number of clients that are looking to do EDI-style data exchanges and transactions. And in doing so, there's a certain level of exposure that you're introducing to a system that may or may not be a completely closed and isolated system, or at least you're eliminating, and this is kind of a double-edged sword. I talk about human beings being the most vulnerable part in this chain, but when you introduce total EDI transactions to your environment there, you remove the user element from that. Now, on one hand, you're removing a potential threat. However, that threat can be fairly easily and inexpensively mitigated through training and procedure. The problem you run into is that when you remove the human element from it and everything is left to automated systems, once those automated systems are compromised, it's fairly easy to conceal that compromise and allow that breach to continue long term. So there's a trade-off from a security standpoint. The one thing we do need to be concerned about is the resilience of enterprise systems. Despite the assurances that Deloitte's own systems remain unaffected, the breach underscores the importance of proactive defensive strategies. Enterprises should adopt resilient focus frameworks, which, we've addressed a number of those frameworks here. These frameworks should be emphasizing attack simulations, disaster recovery, and immutable backup. Concepts that a lot of enterprises and commercial entities out there don't focus on. And the economics of ransomware are a driving factor in all of this. With hackers threatening public data releases, the financial pressure on victims is immense, fueling debates on paying ransoms versus tightening regulatory bans. Should paying ransoms be banned? They are in some cases. Certain government agencies have banned it. Do such policies risk exacerbating victim losses and disruptions? There's no guarantee that your data is not going to be released, even if you pay the ransom. And by paying the ransom, you're enabling these attackers to get even more sophisticated, acquire more resources, and be more dangerous. So it's one of those, the old adage of we don't negotiate with terrorists. That's a very situational type of thing that has proven less than truthful in the past. Cybersecurity and ransomware is turning out to be a similarly muddy waters that we have to deal with here, where it's not quite as cut and dry or black and white as we'd like it to be. We'll see how this turns out. Our next article comes to us from Bleeping Computer. Senator announces a new bill to secure telecom companies, and this is in response to our Salt Typhoon. In response to the Salt Typhoon cyber attacks that breached major U.S. telecom networks, Senator Ron Wyden has proposed the Secure American Communications Act. Surprised they don't have a clever acronym for that. This bill aims to enforce binding FCC cybersecurity rules requiring telecom providers to conduct annual vulnerability tests, patch identified issues, and undergo independent compliance audits. Wyden criticized the lack of robust cybersecurity policies, attributing the breaches to decades of lax regulation, and called for urgent legislative action to protect Americans' communications from foreign hackers. The Salt Typhoon attacks confirmed by the FBI and CISA allowed Chinese hackers to infiltrate multiple U.S. carriers, including AT&T and Verizon, among others, compromising internet traffic and user data for months. Federal officials advised using encrypted messaging apps and implementing stricter telecom security measures. As the Senate debates Wyden's bill, the stakes remain high in safeguarding critical communication networks against state-sponsored cyber threats. So again, this talks about mandating what really is common sense cybersecurity. Any company out there that works on any type of information technology infrastructure should do so under the guidance of an existing, already proven, already effective framework. And there isn't a single framework out there that doesn't have these basic ideas in there of what you should do from a patch standpoint, or what you should do from independent audits. So right now, anyone who is adhering to these government frameworks, NIST 800-171, 853 for government organizations, ISO 27001, they all have provisions in here for all of the things that Wyden's asking for. So part of the concern that I have is in knowing that and working so closely with this, it's clear that Senator Wyden and our elected officials are unfamiliar with basic cybersecurity. And that's dangerous because these are the people that are trying to legislate how we're going to deal with these security issues. And I think it behooves someone in government, CISA at least, you would think has the resources and expertise to educate our elected officials on frameworks. I mean, you can listen to a podcast and get the education you need at this point in time. There's no reason that we should have legislation proposing individual things that are covered under these frameworks. If we're going to mandate anything, it should be adherence to a framework. Pick whatever framework you want. Doesn't matter to me which one you use. Any of the frameworks will improve your cybersecurity significantly. So one of the things I think we need to do is we need to educate our elected officials if they're going to start regulating these things so that they're doing it in an educated and logical manner. And then on top of that, you have to have some type of mitigation in place if people don't abide by these. I can tell you right now that in the early days of CMMC, a lot of people didn't take it seriously because it was not inexpensive to get into some of the systems and services that were needed to produce the level of security that was required. So a lot of people would just go through, check the boxes, and claim that they were compliant because there were no penalties if you were not compliant or if you claimed compliance and you weren't. And that's all changing very quickly now. So there has to be some level of consequences if you're not going to adhere to the basic cybersecurity principles that are outlined in these frameworks. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, I'd like to take a moment to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You could find all of the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. We are available on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Buzzsprout, Podbean, anywhere you can get a podcast. I would also invite you to reach out, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things. Or you can call us, leave a message on our voicemail. We can get you up on the show if you'd like. Just say so in the message. Our phone number is 856-403-8788. Again, that's 856-403-8788. Let us know how we're doing. Tell us how you're handling these issues and how you're handling cybersecurity. We'd love to get your feedback. When we come back, we'll finish talking about the news, and then we'll talk about CMMC and frameworks. We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Technology. This next article comes to us from BBC News, which is kind of ironic, given the subject of TikTok is set to be banned in the U.S. TikTok's future in the United States hangs in the balance after a federal appeals court upheld a law that could see the app banned or sold by early 2025 over alleged, and I emphasize alleged, national security concerns tied to its Chinese ownership. TikTok plans to take the fight to the Supreme Court, arguing the ban would unconstitutionally restrict free speech for its 170 million U.S. users. Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump's pre-election pledge to prevent the ban, which, if we fast forward or we rewind back to Trump's first 4 years, and he was the first one to call for a ban on it because he was being attacked on it. Apparently, he's now changed his tune. Now he's pledging to prevent the ban, and offers it a potential lifeline, though strong bipartisan anti-China sentiment in Congress may challenge this path. The case has drawn significant attention from TikTok's content creators and rival platforms. Analysts predict a ban could reshape the social media landscape, benefiting competitors like Meta and YouTube, while disrupting small businesses and creators reliant on TikTok's unique recommendation engine. However, recreating TikTok's success, built on cutting-edge AI and big data infrastructure, may prove challenging for rivals, leaving questions about the broader impact of this legal battle on tech and geopolitics. So this is I've railed against this for quite some time now as, what are we doing as a country? Why are we worrying about banning a social media network that has alleged security issues, but no actual proven hard evidence to support any of those allegations at this point in time? We as a country are bending over backward, and I'm not a TikTok user. Let me put that out there. I don't produce content for it. and I very rarely consume content on it. So I don't really have a horse in the race on this one. But you look at what's happening with the stories we just talked about with Salt Typhoon and all these other breaches where you have legitimate nation-state actors that are coming in, attacking our infrastructure, attacking or at least obtaining information on high-ranking public officials. And yet, for some reason, we want to ban TikTok. There's not a single incident in which it's caused any type of security breach. It hasn't compromised national security. There isn't even any allegations that it's compromised anybody's personal information or credit card information. And yet we want to ban them. Our politicians, our elected officials are hell-bent on banning TikTok for reasons that this article may actually shed some light on when you talk about who's going to benefit from these bans. And this story alone tells us that competitors like Meta and YouTube are going to benefit from these. So it makes me wonder how much political pressure these competitors are putting on our elected officials to put this ban in place so that they can benefit from it. Surely the users aren't going to benefit from this. Given 170 million users in the country that are using this service, some of whom use it as a source of income to sell things and to have their presence, it's hard to see how that's possibly going to benefit the users or the citizens of this country. And I think before any ban goes into place, that question needs to be answered. Who's this going to benefit? What threat does TikTok pose? There's a lot of questions that are still unanswered on this, and it seems like they're not going to be answered, and nobody seems to want to ask these questions before a ban actually goes into place. So again, this causes me to question the legitimacy of the efforts on the part of our government to secure our systems here, because they're putting an awful lot of effort into banning TikTok and very little effort in making sure that our telecom systems are secure. We'll see where this one goes. I don't have a lot of hopes for this one. Our next story comes to us from Dark Reading. News reports showcases the risks to the U.S. critical. A new report showcases the risks to the U.S. critical infrastructure. A new report from Fortress Information Security has uncovered alarming vulnerabilities in software critical to U.S. infrastructure. Again, what are we doing banning TikTok when this is happening? Researchers found that 90% of software products used by utilities, pipelines, and communications networks contain code developed in China, which is 1.4 times more likely to include exploitable flaws. The study, based on over 2,000 software products, identified 9,000 vulnerabilities, including 855 highly exploitable ones, with just 20 components responsible for 80% of the critical risks. Dependencies like the Linux kernel, zlib, and the OpenSSL are common culprits. Fortress CEO Alex Santos calls for urgent action to identify and eliminate these risks, emphasizing the existential threat to U.S. security. By addressing key vulnerabilities, experts argue, organizations can significantly strengthen defenses against potential backdoors that could be exploited by foreign adversaries. The findings highlight the need for robust software bills of materials, or SBOMs, and industry-wide collaboration to mitigate systemic threats. So again, we have a clearly identified threat. These are dependencies that are in place right now for existing systems that have known exploits and known flaws. Whether they're inadvertent or intentional flaws, this study doesn't actually talk about. But the fact that they exist and they exist in such numbers across so many systems is frankly alarming. These are high-risk dependencies in enterprise software right now that very little is being done about. Software components like the Linux kernel and OpenSSL are prevalent everywhere. Now, there's challenges to managing open source dependencies. One of the requirements or policy positions that I implemented in my organization was that any shared libraries that our software uses must be housed in-house, which requires manual intervention to update libraries, to sandbox them to make sure that they are secure before they go out to production. But what this prevents is us linking to a hosted library somewhere else that can then manipulate it without our knowledge. The case, and we've talked about this in the past, for software bills of material, again, this is one of those cybersecurity no-brainers. It's common sense. You want to know what your code is using, what libraries you're using, where it's coming from, who's maintaining it, how often it's being updated, any vulnerabilities that are involved. That's what SBOMs buy you in this situation here. The intersection of cybersecurity and geopolitics. This is something that isn't going away anytime soon. The report underscores the broader geopolitical implications of cybersecurity, especially when foreign developed code powers critical systems. Before, not that long ago, 10 years ago, you had to be careful where you offshored your development at, because everything was being offshored for cost reasons. Now, a lot of that, even if you're not offshoring it and you're doing the development work in the United States, that vulnerability still exists just from shared libraries at this point. So these are the things that we as a nation should be focusing on. These are clear threats. They pose immediate vulnerabilities, and they can be catastrophic if they're exploited. This is what the United States should be focusing on moving forward. Not banning TikTok or any of the silly things that we seem to be wanting to focus on at this point. I swear this working in IT can be exceedingly frustrating these days. Our last article comes to us from TechCrunch, and this one I was hoping to end the news on a high note here, so we'll see how well this goes. Can Willow change the world of quantum computing? Google has unveiled Willow, its latest quantum computing chip, claiming performance so extraordinary it actually suggests the existence of parallel universes. According to Google quantum AI founder Hartman Nevin, Willow completed a computation in under 5 minutes that would take the fastest supercomputer 10 septillion years, far exceeding the age of the universe. Nevin argues this supports the idea that quantum computations leverage parallel universes, aligning with the multiverse hypothesis first proposed by quantum physicist David Deutsch. While some experts find the claims plausible, others remain skeptical, noting that the benchmarks were developed by Google itself. Not that there's anything shady about that. Willow's breakthrough lies in improving quantum computing reliability by reducing errors associated with qubits, the core building blocks of quantum processors. Whether Willow's performance marks a true leap toward practical quantum computing, or simply fuels more debate about its implications for physics and computing, remains to be seen. So the potential disruption to computational workloads, if this is true, and that's a big if, Willow speed demonstrates quantum computing's ability to tackle problems classical computers simply can't, such as molecular modeling, cryptography, and supply chain optimization. The real-world use cases for quantum industries, like pharmaceuticals for drug discovery, finance for risk modeling, and energy for material science simulations, could benefit from this technology. How could quantum computing shrink timelines for innovation? These are all things that were the promise of quantum computing in the early days. It seemed like a work of fiction at the time when it came out. There are enterprise security implications if this proves out. Quantum computing's ability to break traditional encryption, like RSA and ECC, poses a threat to current data security. Considerations must be given, and must be given today, to quantum-resistant cryptography and how enterprises should prepare for the post-quantum cryptographic landscape. But this is still a relatively uncharted space. It's hard to write quantum-resistant cryptography when you don't understand the direction or potential of quantum computing at this point. There are challenges to scalability and error management. That's one of the things that's always been an issue with quantum computing, where in traditional computers, the fundamental unit that's used to do computations is the bit, which is binary. It's either a 0 or a 1. With qubits, there are phases in between, I'll say. Google's use of its proprietary benchmark also raises some questions as to how they're actually measuring this. Specifically, the error management here is where the breakthrough has been claimed to have come from. Now, this still has to be verified by independent sources. You know, the race for quantum supremacy is on, and the United States is really a bit player at this point in time. We're not a world leader unless this proves to be true. But quantum computing has the potential to seriously impact economies around the world, obviously security around the world. I wouldn't say it's a industry breaker. It's more of an industry maker moving forward. Google's Willow positions it as a leader in the quantum race, but competitors like IBM, Microsoft, and other startups are also improving rapidly. The economic and strategic advantages of dominating quantum technology, including the potential government and enterprise partnerships to accelerate adoption, are as yet unclear, but a significant potential for the future. So this is exciting. I think this is one of those, take it with a grain of salt, since the methodology by which they're making these claims is dubious at best, since they're using their own measurements for it. But I think if these results can be repeated with independent criteria, I think it's an exciting time. I think quantum computing does have significant potential. I think we are decades away probably from really taking advantage of it, though. But with breakthroughs like this, we might get there sooner rather than later. That was all we had for the news today. We're going to take our last break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about CMMC and a few other things. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of your favorite gaming podcast finishing with a play?
Oh, no!
Well, check out No Credits Rolled, where we play the games but rarely finish them. How's it going, folks? I'm Sam Whalen, your friendly host at No Credits Rolled, the ultimate gaming podcast, where we dish out the latest scoops and reviews on all your beloved video games.
Hey, listen!
Not only that, but we spice things up with some guest interviews and even give you, yes, you, a chance to have your say. Tune in every other week for a fresh dose of No Credits Rolled, available on all major podcast platforms, and hit us up on social media at No Credits Rolled. So why wait? Let's dive into the gaming world together, where finishing games is optional, but the fun is guaranteed.
Welcome back to Insights into Technology. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, which borrows much of its philosophy from the NIST frameworks of the 800, 171 primarily, but some 853 as well. And it's targeted at a very specific sector of the market, that being government contractors, basically anyone doing business as a prime or sub with the government where CUI information is exchanged. We're also going to take a look at the global standard for information security, or I don't want to say global, it's as a true definition of it, but it's basically outside of the United States. And that's the global standard for information security management, or ISO 27001. We'll talk about where these two frameworks are best used and what some of the fundamental philosophical differences are. So CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model, it's a set of cybersecurity requirements developed to secure the information systems of contractors working for the Department of Defense. CMMC provides a structured approach to cybersecurity with specific levels of maturity that scale requirements according to the sensitivity of the information a contractor handles. This scaling means that smaller contractors who handle less sensitive data may have less stringent requirements, while larger contractors with access to highly sensitive information must meet more robust standards. By enforcing these guidelines, the DoD aims to safeguard critical information from potential security threats, ensuring that contractors handling defense information meet consistent and reliable security standards. It's also worth noting that scalability that they talk about here also has a cost scale assigned to it as well. So the less sensitive information that you handle, the less expensive it is to become compliant with it. CMMC is organized into different levels and domains. Each level represents a stage of cybersecurity maturity, with level 1 focused on basic practices for small contractors, and level 3 covering advanced and proactive measures for contractors working with highly sensitive data. These levels cover various domains of cybersecurity, including access control, incident response, and risk management, all things we've talked about previously, especially with the NIST frameworks. As contractors move up through the levels, they must adopt increasingly sophisticated measures across these domains, ensuring a higher standard of security as the risk to information grows. The transition from CMMC 1.0, which was never fully adopted, to CMMC 2.0 brought several important changes. 2.0 simplified the model by reducing the levels from 5 to 3, focusing on core requirements and aligning more closely with the National Institutes of Standards and Technology cybersecurity standards. This alignment with NIST standards makes it easier for contractors to understand the requirements, as many organizations are already familiar with NIST guidelines. CMMC 2.0 emphasizes a risk-based approach, which means contractors can tailor their security measures based on the level of risk they face. This updated model is designed to make compliance more straightforward while still providing effective protection. One of the other things it was also designed to do was help reduce the cost of entry into these systems so that smaller companies didn't find it too burdensome. For small to medium businesses in the defense contracting field, meeting CMMC requirements can be challenging. Many smaller contractors have limited resources, making it difficult to implement comprehensive cybersecurity practices. However, compliance is essential not only for securing contracts with the DoD, but also for establishing a reputation as a reliable and secure partner. CMMC offers these businesses a clear framework to follow, helping them protect valuable data and reduce risks, which is increasingly important in today's digital landscape. Now, this becomes even more poignant because CMMC 2.0 technically goes into effect on the 16th of this month. So those who are not well along their way at this point in time, it may prove to be challenging and difficult to get contracts with the government moving forward. We started down this path in my company 8 years ago now, something like that. And it's been a long slog. It's been a lot of putting systems in place, figuring out how we can become compliant, cycling through systems. I had several utilities that our compliance was dependent on either change their models, their pricing, or simply be deprecated and go out of business. That it's been very challenging. We use a third-party company now in a secure enclave environment that seems to be the preferred method now. It's not inexpensive, but it's less expensive and less resource intensive than trying to do it in-house. So the other framework I wanted to talk about today was ISO 27001. Now, this is considered the global standard for information security management. ISO 27001 is a globally recognized standard for establishing and maintaining an effective information security management system, or ISMS. An ISMS is a structured framework that helps organizations manage and protect sensitive data, reduce risks, and ensure continuity of operations. ISO 27001 provides specific guidelines and requirements that organizations can follow to secure information assets, making it a crucial tool for businesses of all sizes and sectors worldwide. By adhering to ISO 27001, organizations demonstrate their commitment to protecting data, which enhances trust among clients, partners, and stakeholders. The foundation of ISO 27001 is built on three core principles, often referred to as the CIA triad. They are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality refers to ensuring that sensitive information is accessible only to those authorized to see it, preventing unauthorized access. Integrity focuses on maintaining the accuracy and completeness of data, ensuring it's not altered in unauthorized ways. Availability ensures that information is accessible to authorized users whenever it's needed, supporting the smooth operation of business processes. Together, these principles form a balanced approach to information security, helping organizations protect data from external threats, internal mishandling, and accidental losses. ISO 27001 includes a set of control categories which provide specific actions an organization must take to protect its information. These control categories cover areas such as access control, incident management, physical security, and data encryption, among others. Each category addresses different aspects of information security, enabling an organization to establish comprehensive protections across all areas of its operation. To achieve ISO 27001 certification, an organization must demonstrate that it has effectively implemented these controls through a rigorous audit process conducted by an independent certification body. This certification assures that clients and regulators that the organization has met internationally recognized standards for data protection. One of the strengths of ISO 27001 is its flexibility, allowing it to be tailored to different types of businesses and industries. A technology company, for instance, may focus more heavily on access control and cybersecurity, while a healthcare provider may prioritize data integrity and patient privacy. ISO 27001's framework is adaptable, enabling each organization to address its specific security risks while still complying with the standard. This customization ensures that the standard can be applied effectively across industries with varying degrees and regulatory requirements. An interview with an ISO 27001 certified cybersecurity consultant can offer further insight into how this standard is implemented in real-world scenarios. Such a professional can share practical experiences and challenges, offering guidance on navigating the certification process, managing audits, and adapting ISO 27001 to fit different organizational contexts. Their insights provide valuable perspectives for any organization looking to strengthen its information security practices and achieve ISO 27001 certification. Now, I'll tell you, I've looked at the ISO 27001 standards and requirements, and it's probably one of the most robust frameworks out there. I think that and NIST 853, is probably a close second. The ISO, the NIST 800-171, which is what my organization is shooting for compliance with. I don't want to say we are compliant until we get our certification. That's basically what CMMC Level 2 is for my industry. So, again, frameworks are tools. They are things that are designed to help you do your job better, to help you secure your systems, your data, your users. And if used properly, they can be a huge asset to your company. But you have to handle them in a manageable way. So a lot of that is budgeting, a lot of that is resource allocation, and a lot of that's common sense. And the news articles that we talked about today indicate that the world needs a lot more common sense when it comes to cybersecurity. That was all we had for today. I do want to, once again, before we go, invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to Insights into Things, available at Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbean, anywhere you can get a podcast these days. I would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings. You can also find high-res versions of all of our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings. You can also give us a call. Leave a voicemail for us. We can get you on the show if you'd like. That's 856-403-8788. Again, you can call us at 856-403-8788. And you can find links to all this and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the books.